Where do I go here? Hi. So wait, are we streaming? Oh, okay. Everybody, my name is Mike. I'm also, I feel you in your room. My favorite conglomeration of two Depeche Mode songs put together. But that's enough about me. Let's look at my deck. So I did this draft a couple hours ago. I actually don't think this deck came out that amazing. I definitely think I ended up in the right colors. The beginning of the draft, my pick one pack one was actually Circle of Confinement. But then I got 2 consecutive bleed dries. And then I'm not sure exactly because I don't have it open or anything. I know I took that Twin Blade Geist pretty early, maybe the 3rd or 4th pick. But I think the Bloodtithe Harvester that I got, I think it was mid pack 1. I definitely got that, so I kind of knew because I had some vampires already. I kind of thought, I want to end up black red. As far as the curve goes, I think the curve's all right, but there's a couple dud cards in here. As far as like card draw goes, like Vampire's Kiss is not a not the type of card I normally would want in a deck like this. Vampire's Kiss can be better in like a black-white deck, I find, because the life gain trigger can proc a lot of things. So in here, I really only have it because honestly, I really shouldn't have it, but I feel like I don't really want to use Reckless Impulse in here. Although maybe I should. I only have the one Bloodtithe Harvester. So having all that extra blood doesn't seem that necessary. I kind of wanted it to make the Bloodtithe Harvester a little more lethal. While also giving the Bloodcrazed Socialites a lot of fuel, I suppose. But I don't know. Maybe I'll make that change on air. Yeah, actually, because my curve actually isn't that bad, so Reckless Impulse might actually be good in here. As far as like sideboarding options go, the End the Festivities is normally pretty good. If you're going against like blue white, or like any other 1 toughness creature type opponent. Yeah, this deck like kind of came together because I feel like the Vampire's Vengeance that I have will actually work pretty well in here. I have a lot of vampires. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's actually not that many, but most of my creatures are 3 toughness or higher. Graf Reaver's one of those cards I really wish wasn't in here, but it's a 2-drop. I figured it might be a necessity, and I feel like this is one of those cards that you always hope is gonna actually be good, and it never ends up being good. I didn't pick it early, but it was like a mid pack. It was like a pack 2, like mid pick somewhere where I definitely took it over something, but it wasn't anything like spectacular. I think it might have been over like a Ragged Recluse, which might have been a mistake. But I was trying to go for a more like all-in approach because I had Dominating Vampire at that point already. Persistent Specimen is definitely a card I do not want in here. I wish I was a Blood Fountain. I feel like Bloodtithe Harvesters without a Courier Bat or a Blood Fountain or even Edgar's Awakening. I'm not saying it's bad, of course. I mean, Bloodtithe Harvester is very good, but it just feels like it's not quite as potent because you can't bring it back. So that's pretty much that. I think I'm gonna go with it like this. If I'm gonna predict my own outcome for this deck, I have a feeling it's gonna go 1 and 2. Don't worry though, I'm better than that. And if I'm assessing this deck properly, then maybe that means I know what I'm talking about. So I guess we'll see. I did go 3-0, 24 minutes earlier today. I had a nice blue-green deck with rares abound. I had a Howlpack Shaman. I had a Geralf. Hive-Heart Shaman. Cemetery Illuminator. And a lot of, I had 2 Wedding Invitations. With 2 Flourishing Hunters and a Brambleworm, so a lot of fatties. And then I had a couple Spore Crawlers, so that deck was good. All right, well, I guess this is kind of what I was hoping for. See, this Graf Reaver is kind of just garbage. You know, of course, if they end up with a Planeswalker somehow, then it won't be so bad. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, this is kind of what I was hoping for with the Vampire's Vengeance, which is why I took the Graf Reaver. 2-drop with a high toughness, even if it's not a vampire, so. Okay, I'll put the Mountain out because I do have a Dominating Vampire. Black-White is, it's actually, now I haven't gotten into it recently, but Black-White was actually the color pair that really got me going in this format. That was the one that, I was on a streak of drafting it a lot, and there's the Dominating Vampire. It was a color pair that I got into early, and I had at one point, like, this was before like I really took off in the format. I had a streak of 4 out of 6 of the times I was Black-White trophying with it, and then the other 2. This was in Premiere, so I had a 6-3 and a 5-3 with it. So it was pretty good. I think what I'm gonna do here is I kind of want to get value out of this, and already with a Kindly Ancestor, I'm already kind of like assuming this Vampire's Vengeance isn't going to do too much. So I think, I feel like if I'm really trying to troll them here, I would attack with the Persistent Specimen, and then they would block. I don't know if they'll do that. I think what I'll do is I'll attack with both, because I'll have to drop the Kindly Ancestor. Let's see. They just took it, which is fine and sort of expected. I feel like I was saying before, I don't think this Bloodtithe Harvester is going to be all that great in this deck. It's going to be good, of course, but I don't think it's going to be all that fantastic. See, this is a situation where I think I kind of want to block, because that way it's one less creature that I have to deal with that this Vampire's Vengeance isn't going to do anything with. They probably have a combat trick. They probably have something, because I don't think they would attack into it unless they're just scared of this thing, which is fine. I kind of want the blood anyway. Not with me. Anytime that you can take cards out of their hand. This is one of those reasons why combat tricks aren't like my favorite thing. Yeah, that bleed dry is going to be fantastic for that Kindly Ancestor now. Vampire's Vengeance is going to be great for that Fellstinger. Well, okay. All right. Well, this is one of those types of cards where, because it keeps doing a damage to you, I think you just keep attacking with it. Now, this is a thing that happens, I think, in this format, I tend to do it slightly more often, is sometimes, even though it's not normally good to do it, when the opponent's tapped out, I do tend to like using removal if I feel like they're probably inclined to have combat tricks. So actually, they're at 12 life, I'm at 16, so if I get rid of this Kindly Ancestor now, I think that might be good for me, because Graf Reaver is one of those cards that you have to, like, babysit, and it's one of those cards where, it's already being stonewalled by this Kindly Ancestor, if it needs to be. So I think just getting rid of it's better, because otherwise this race is not going to go my way. And now Vampire's Vengeance is looking much better for me than it was 2 seconds ago. Yeah, see that this all right, well, I don't want to push my luck on getting value out of this. I feel like I just want to get the value now. I think I do this first. And now I have Rending Flame to get rid of whatever they put out next. Or if Dominating Vampire somehow, some way. I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot. They probably have, they might have Fierce Retribution. And a lot of swamps. I think it's quite simple here. Down to 6. I'm not going to start blooding away lands yet. I think I'll do this. Not sure if I really want to use this yet. Maybe I should. Feel like I don't want to use this, because actually Dominating Vampire, depending on what they put out, might just win me the game. So here, I think what I want to do is, I know it seems pretty bad. I think I'm gonna, just to get damage through. And Dominating Vampire is one of those cards. There's a reason why it's not like that high of a pick, and it's because of situations like this, where, like, I think this is kind of just like a better. It's just like a better Bloody Betrayal. I think that's the best way of putting it. Like, this card, it's only 1 mana, and I only have 1 vampire out, so it'll just clear the way slightly for me to get this Graf Reaver in, and then he'll be down to 3, or they will be down to 3, and or 2, and if they have removal, that's fine, because I have something sitting in there myself. Yeah, I think this looks pretty good. But yeah, Graf Reaver is definitely a card you have to babysit constantly, and it's pretty annoying, to be honest. But it works with Vampire's Vengeance, and that was the logic when I drafted it. As far as like what they had, they didn't really have any. I mean, all of these cards die to Vampire's Vengeance. The the Lifelinker Kindly Ancestor doesn't. I have a feeling there's probably they probably didn't draw the cards they were hoping for. I'm gonna assume that there's a Markov Purifier in here. I'm going to assume that there's probably Panic Bystanders. Potentially, you know, who knows? They probably have Edgar also. This Aim for the Head doesn't seem so bad, only because they don't really seem to have that much blood generation or card draw where, you know, you might be able to like really backbreak them. The Reckless Impulse doesn't seem amazing. I mean, that's one of those cards where, you know, I know for me, I tend to not like playing it because I feel like it's one of those cards I never really want to spend time playing. I know it's you know good, but I feel like, you know, with this many 4-drops, and I have 2 5-drops, and they're kind of like crucial cards in my deck. This isn't a deck where you can throw away one of these 4-drops. Like they're kind of like how, you know, I want to win. I think I'm just gonna run it like this. I think we'll see how this one goes. I'm not really expecting much out of this deck, obviously. Well, I have a nice curve here. I have a if-then for turn 3. Seems all right. I mean, the one thing this deck does have a decent thing of is got a decent curve because I have a lot of 1-drops. So even though I don't have that many 2-drops, you know, 1-drops in this format kind of make up for the lack of 2-drops a lot of the times. And a lot of the times the 2-drops in this format aren't really that great. The uncommons are you know, better generally, the 2-drops. Okay. Well, I think what I'll do here is I'll put this on. I mean, I think I know what they're gonna do here. They're obviously gonna equip their courier bat with the knife and start making blood. I don't really love that, but I think I'll be making blood of my own. So, well, that kind of just made up for that. Because now I'll have 4 mana, and then I can Vampire's Vengeance if I want next turn. So. Now, I would preferably 2-for-1 them here, so I don't think I'm going to use the... I don't really want to use the Vampire's Vengeance yet, although it's not that bad if I put the Specimen out. I have a few things I can do. I mean, I can go Wedding Invitation and Vampire's Vengeance next turn. So they pretty clearly have Undying Malice in their hand because there was the pause with only 1 black mana open. I guess it could have been the blood, so I could be entirely wrong about that. I'm not too worried about them making blood yet. Well, this is the reason why the Persistent Specimen, even though I didn't really want it in here, it actually isn't awful. So I think the easy answer, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put out a Wedding Invitation to see what I get first. I probably shouldn't have put the land out yet, but that's all right. I got my Bleed Dry. I would prefer to save the Bleed Dry anyway. Now I'm like pretty behind on the life race here, but the Wedding Invitation I think will save me a little bit. Again, because of this Undying Malice potential, I've been punished before in situations where I didn't. I know generally you're not supposed to use instants now, but I feel like I'd rather know this now, and it might change their plan. Although if they do have Undying Malice, then it'll keep them out of combat this turn. And in combat, they would have been able to use it in combat this turn if they had it. So I think it's better if I use it. Let them sacrifice their blood. If they don't have Undying Malice, that'd be fantastic. But if they do, that's fine. Probably have it, but all right, they don't. See, now all of a sudden, I don't feel like I'm in that bad of a spot. It would be fantastic if I got a land here. Okay. Yeah. I feel like this isn't that great of a turn. And I feel like it's kind of a suboptimal use of... Okay. There's no way that they're in black-white. I just don't think they're going to beat me next turn. And I'll be able to recoup 5 life in theory. So I think doing this and then stacking this next turn. Or I can bleed dry, or if it's two toughness creatures, you know, I can get a 2-for-1 here. I think either way, I think they have to be slightly worried about what I'm going to do. See, this looks pretty good for me. Although now, it's not quite as good as it was 2 seconds ago, because now they're blooding. And I think that just saved them a little bit. Spellstinger, okay. See, this would be great if they get rid of that Ragged Recluse. That'd be fantastic. And actually, even if they don't, it's not that big of a deal because I'll be able to block with this or Rot-Tide. I think because I'm in a Vampire's Vengeance, I'm not going to Rot-Tide, though. He's thinking about it. He's got no cards in hand. So he'll be down to 10, and I'll be up to... I'll be up to 11. And then I'll be down to 8. And then he'll be up to 11. Because of the... Because Persistent Specimen will die. So obviously the thing I'm going to do for sure is I'm going to Wedding Invite. I'll do it the proper way. Now, technically, I should attack with both. What's the best way to do this here? I mean, the dream here would be to block. Yeah, he's not going to. Okay, and then I can do this. Go to 2 of their guys. Then I'll bring that back. Now I know for the next turn it's not great, but he has enough blood where him equipping the ceremonial knife, it doesn't really mean all that much. And I think I'll be the one in the better spot than him, no matter what happens if he gets a creature. There's no way he'll put 2 creatures out unless he gets a courier bat. Well, now he can't cast it, so whatever he has in his hand, in their hand, he probably likes it. All right, so I'm down to 7, actually. At this point, the blood doesn't really matter too. Okay. Think. I probably should have attacked with both. That was a mistake. Okay. Okay. I think here I would rather use the Grisly Ritual, so in theory I can start double spelling. Although getting this and this out might actually be good too. So I think I am going to. I'm not going to really want the blood yet. I would highly prefer having the specimen out for this turn. So that way at least it's untapped. I can Grisly Ritual and then I'll have blood again for anything that comes out the next time. I highly. I don't want him to get. I don't want them to get any sort of creature. I'd rather have them use as much blood as possible and then maybe have to equip that ceremonial knife. I think it's better if I do this. That way I have the specimen ready. Yeah, I'd prefer them using as much blood as they can right now. So now they're down to 4. So, you know, the creatures that they can put out are diminishing in you know, strength. That's a good draw. Well, we'll see what happens here. I mean, this could be the end. This could be lethal. Lethal. All right, we got there. Now, like I've been saying, this deck isn't really high powered as far as like rares go. That still tends to happen. I do feel like the misconception of this format about it being a bomb heavy format, which is true, sometimes gets in the way of you can have, you know, decks that can perform that don't have the reliance on the rares, which this one obviously doesn't. Dominating Vampires probably, I don't want to, I mean, it's not the weakest rare or anything like that. I mean, there's a lot of cards like, you know, dual lands or like some of those card draw spells that just seem very not only are they weak, but they're very specific in their use. Like that green one. What is that one? Sylvan Reclamation. Like, you know, I mean, there's cards in this format at rare that you know, are definitely not optimal any means. But Dominating Vampire is definitely up there and like weakest, I'd say, creature or removal based rare. I actually don't know if there are removal based rares in this set. But regardless, the point is that Dominating Vampire, I almost don't really consider it a rare. It's almost like it's like a supercharged Bloody Betrayal. The Bloody Betrayal, that's conditional, but has a 3/3 body on it. So it's not terrible, but it's just not exciting. Actually, I almost feel like this mana should be flipped, but I feel like having the bleed dry double black is more important than having the Dominating Vampire double red. Because Dominating Vampire, you actually do generally want to play it later, because you kind of want to use it for like an Alpha Strike situation if you're gold fishing. But we'll see. I got 1 win in here. Of course, 1 win feels good, but for the gem recoup purposes, getting 2 wins would be nice here. But I'm actually not really expecting it. This is one of my weaker red black decks I've had in a while. Oh man. Well, okay, I'll be honest here with you, everybody. I really don't like mulliganing if I don't have to. And this is one of those situations where you kind of don't have to. I don't like taking risks in mulliganing if I actually have like lands to play. Obviously I'll mulligan a hand if it has like one or see, I mean, all of a sudden now this isn't a bad hand. Like 5 lands and 2 of those cards. That's actually not bad already. All right, Storm Tracer Drake. A little intense already. But that's what the Rending Flame's for. Suitor's also really rough. All right, so I think here I have to, when they're tapped out, I kind of have to use this now. I feel like even though Storm Tracer Drake's a bigger, it's an annoying card, but I think Alluring Suitor here is actually more annoying because Gluttonous Guest is not going to do anything to prevent them from just going with it. So I think it's blue-red. I kind of don't trust bounce spells. I don't trust Cradle of Safety. Like, I'm just going to use it now and just keep the clock slower. I think that's just better. I don't want to take billions amount of damage already. Temper Loner, that's really scary. So this looks like a very problematic game already. This avoids the Abrade. It's fine. They wanted to get their value, so it makes sense. All right, so this is where Bleed Dry would be absolutely fantastic, but Diregraf Scavenger actually isn't terrible here either. They already have their Alluring Suitor in the yard. I definitely have outs here. I'm going to be at 6 mana already. So Ill-Tempered Loner. Got a few cards that I can draw here. I'm doing my best landlording impression. But like I said, I mean, that opening hand, while it wasn't great, the big fear with opening hands like that is when you go on those runs where you already have a lot of lands, but you still draw like 3 or 4 afterwards. Luckily, I I drew the Rending Flame, which kind of like changed the complexion of my hand entirely. I could see them flipping. They definitely have good cards here. Their card quality is pretty high in this deck. Red blue is actually nowadays it's kind of one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite color pairs, and it is for a lot of people. So I think what I'm gonna do here is, I think I'm gonna actually attack with this Diregraf Scavenger, because now at least I have something that can block the Ill-Tempered Loner. It's not flipped, so it's still a 3/3, and it will be next turn. I think it kind of just makes sense. The Biolume Egg isn't a problem yet. This is the type of card where it's just going to kill me in a game like this, though. I think ideally I probably want to play another land. I don't really, I do actually make a decent amount of blood in this deck, but this is more like a deck where I want to use the blood, not like I use it for the Bloodcrazed Socialites. Well, I'm doing my landlording. So here, I mean, I feel like I kind of have to just sit. I can't play a spell. I mean, I probably just lose here, to be honest. If I'm being honest here, I think I just lose. So I'll just take my medicine. Their deck has a much higher card quality than I do. That's their second alluring suitor. There's not really too much I can do here, to be honest, because if I block, I think I have to get rid of this thing. I mean, no matter what, he's gonna kill that. I'm gonna take 3 damage, then I'm gonna take 2 damage, and I'm gonna take another 2 damage, so I'll be at 2 here, and he can pump that once, so I'll be down to 1 life here. Yeah, I mean, obviously drawing 10 lands is not ideal, so, but their card quality is much higher than mine. Red blue has a good combination of they have good creatures like early in the curve, which pair very, very well together. They have a lot of like, well, there's my next land. So, all right, so I drew 11 lands out of 16 cards, so that's pretty good. I don't really have high hopes for this second match. I feel like this is going to be another loss. I think I kind of have to. They had Reckless Impulse. They had 2 alluring suitors. They didn't have too much card draw. They had the. I think Graf Reaver is just a stake to have in this. They only have one thing that have 1 toughness. I think Graf Reaver is gonna go because this feels like it'll be like a board stall type situation. Aim for the head might be good here. I think I might have to do that. Only because if they have a Biolume Egg, they obviously have exploiters, meaning that they probably have zombies. So might not be horrific if a Diver Scab comes down, and maybe if they're sitting with a Howl Pack Avenger in their hand, it could get rid of that. Lightning Wolf actually might not be horrendous in here either. But what to cut doesn't really seem to make sense for me. I think I'm just gonna run this. This is definitely they had way too strong of cards. But I like blue red decks in this format specifically because I feel like this is the first. Now I've kind of played off and um on Arena. Um I'd say the first time I started really taking drafting seriously in Arena was during M20. So I kind of dabbled in well, I guess it was M19. Because Guilds of Ravnica, I definitely drafted a decent amount, but I still wasn't like I wasn't going for Mythic or anything like that. I was definitely drafting probably more than what I might have thought I was going to before I got into it. Um, but it seems like blue red is a color pair that for whatever reason seems to be sort of like it always tends to be like kind of like a weird like offbeat type color pair where it's a lot of it's like a spell heavy type deck where like you only have a few like key creature pieces and like if one of these pieces like leave the battlefield, it kind of like ruins your whole plan. So I kind of like blue red specifically in this format because it actually kind of just feels like a normal deck, but it's actually just really strong cards individually. I think a lot of it has to do with blue kind of being more open than it should be, which is fine. I would prefer getting value out of this Diregraf Scavenger, but I think for these purposes, I'm going to play it. I don't think I have time to afford dilly-dallying around. Stupid Evolving Wilds. That. And, Rot-Tide Gargantua. There's our Alluring Suitor. Aim for the head doesn't seem horrendous here, but I think that'll kind of work out better next turn. I think it's pretty clear here they're going to get rid of their Selhoff and Tumor. Damage in. Okay, they're down to 4 cards. Now, unless they have Daybreak Combatants, or the Frenzied Devils, I don't see them flipping this next turn. Generally, good blue-red decks don't have that. More a question of whether I want to attack with a Gluttonous Guest. I feel like I do this first in case I get like a sweet removal spell. They could just be holding a lot of lands, which is kind of what I'm expecting here. I'm expecting two lands to go into the exile zone. Somehow, some way, I'm actually the kind of the aggressor here. Kind of worked out. Down to 1 card. Figured Flameblessed Ball was best used there, which is probably fine. All right, so here, this is interesting. Yeah, Alchemist Retrieval's in the yard. They use Flameblast Bolt, Braid. I don't remember any other. Now, I think I really put a stranglehold on him if I put the Diregraf Scavenger out, because this actually blocks the suitor pretty good. Although Bloodcrazed Socialite might be nice too, because they only have one creature, and that means they kind of have to sit back. I think Scavenger's kind of better later. That's my guess here. Because they kind of okay, actually won. Aim for the head actually seemed to work out there, because that Alchemist Retrieval could have caused problems for me. We'll see. I feel like they just have that great of a they didn't have that great of a draw, unless they just drew all their best cards in that first game, because you know, Storm Chaser Drake, 2 suitors, Ill-Tempered Loner, Falcon Wrath Celebrants. That's kind of a pretty potent combination all the way around. I almost wonder if I want to put this Dread Fugue in there. I know a lot of times when you know, you read up or listen to stuff about like pick one pack ones, draft grades, this, that, and the other thing. You know, a lot of times people will give certain cards like Fs or, you know, whatever the grades are. But contextually in best of 3, a lot of times cards actually can make sense in certain situations. I don't know if Dread Fugue is best here. I feel like because it's a blue-red deck, it would be nice to know what's in their hand and getting rid of one thing. I feel like I can kind of handle all their creatures with Diregraf Scavengers other than Ill-Tempered Loner. But this kind of feels like a situation where there's nothing I really want to take out. I could see taking out Reckless Impulse. But I think card advantage is pretty key here. It actually does seem like they're not very card advantage heavy, despite being blue-red. They had the 1 Reckless Impulse. This hand's kind of rough. This hand is like more closer to me mulliganing than the 6 land, 1 Gluttonous Guest hand. I just feel like Reckless Impulse is not super optimal here, but actually because I have a lot of the late game pieces, if I miss out on 1 or 2 of them, it's actually not going to be the end of the world. So I think I keep this. This feels like a pretty terrible hand if they start off fast. Well, that kind of saved me a little bit, even though I'd prefer having a land. All right, so here, I think for mana efficiency purposes, I think I want to use this. I definitely want to hit that 4th land drop. Dominating Vampire isn't really going to help me too much. This is sort of that nightmare scenario I was just describing with Reckless Impulse. Drawing a 4-drop and a 6-drop, because both of those are just going to disappear. Okay. Saves me a little bit. Alluring Suitor can't kill me yet. I think what I just do here is I think I just I attack with this because they're not gonna have a haste creature out. They might be afraid of something like a braid, so I think they'll just let it through. Or they actually didn't, but that's fine. Calling me out of my nonsense. I would love it if that ill-tempered loner came out. There it is, and they're tapped out. That's very beautiful for me. Now this doesn't cure all my ills, but Vampire's Vengeance will cure the Stormchaser Drake ill. Rending Flame is actually really bad against this thing because Dominating Vampire is actually just gonna die. I think what I have to do again is I think I have to do this. I'm gonna attack with both. I mean, obviously I have to Rending Flame this even though it's gonna kill my Dominating Vampire. I have a choice here. I have to get the 5 damage is a lot. Luckily he took the Vampire off instead of going to the face. Not an extremely scary Reckless Impulse, which is good for me. Although I'm kind of well, at least now I have 2 for 1 them, which I've yet to see their Biolume Egg Exploiter. But this seems like the perfect spot for me to 2 for 1 them with a Defender on the board. Could very well, yeah, they have Alchemist. They're going to draw a card. That was rough. It's kind of backbreaking. Essentially what that was a 3 for 2. It would be very fantastic if I hit that 4th land drop, which is becoming a very painful thorn in my side because I'm 15 cards in. I think I'm better off putting this out to at least block the Epicure and Tumor. Then I can gain a little bit of life. I really need that land drop, though. This is where the game kind of goes off the rails. You can only get that up to a bit of 3/3 at best. But I kind of have to block it. Well, I got that land, but it's a little late. Okay. If I think the obvious answer here is I have to play the Scavenger first. Sure that Ill-Tempered Loner's gone. I still have blood to stabilize me. It would be nice if so that bleed dry is obviously going to go towards that Stormchaser Drake if possible. The other thing that I'm sort of just sitting here waiting on is the Biolume Egg. This is one of those reasons why I can't exploit with the Rot-Tide Gargantua. I mean the lands are they're hurting me, but I think I don't really have a choice here. I think yet again I'm gonna do that thing I said isn't good to do, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Going to bleed dry the Stormchaser Drake now just to reduce the chance of them having something. And if they have it, then they have it. They have it. They have quote unquote it. Yep. This is where you get punished when they do have it, because now, you know, doing more cards from it, but I don't really think I have a choice. This is where the second Alluring Suitor comes out. That Biolume egg really makes my Rot-Tides less relevant. Obviously, I think I think I'm just dead here more or less. Because they will be able to pump this once, twice. I can pump it 3 times. I'll be down to 2 regardless. I really don't see how I win here. I think the only chance I have is to bleed away the... I really need a bleed dry. I have another one of. Okay, so here I think I just have to play this now. And then I think I have to try again next. Yeah, this Alluring Suitor is going to be very painful. Second one. That's also painful in its own way. The double Alchemist Retrieval was pretty backbreaking on that storm. And also being stuck on 3 lands. Here. And the Biolume egg made the Rot-Tides very irrelevant. This is where double Alluring Suitor gets really scary because the other one has trample, so they can kind of just use that instead. Can't actually kill it either. And now Bleed Dry doesn't really save me either. Really looking for exactly Bleed Dry, but at this point it's not even a second Diregraf Scavenger would actually probably save me for another turn. I think I still want to get rid of the mountain, even though that makes Grisly Ritual not as optimal of a draw here. I drew a lot of lands. 1, 2, 3. You guys got it all. All right, well, I guess I lose. So that deck was pretty good. Obviously having double Alluring Suitors better than having one. Stacking them on top of each other is pretty powerful. I think the real reason why I lost here, of course, the mana didn't help, but the cards that really broke me, double Alchemist Retrieval and the Storm Chaser Drake, that just netted them 2 extra cards. But I really didn't think I had a chance that game, so even winning that second one was actually pretty miraculous. So this is the game that's always the most stressful of all, because this is the one that either nets you 1 pack and a high 5, or you get 1,000 gems in 4 packs. So we'll see how this one goes. I will say, in the last month and a half, now I'm not really jinxing it. I mean, I actually think this deck is a 1 and 2 type of deck. I actually am infinite as of a month and a half ago, only from gems, not even counting like the gold and all that. I have 27 trophies in this format, which is actually pretty good. Up to this point, I've still played Midnight Hunt much more than I played this format, but I'm actually 5 ahead on trophies already. Like I'm not mythic complete yet. So Midnight Hunt, I was definitely mythic complete. I'm rare complete. I'm mythic, still about 20 something away. Another rough one with my least favorite 2-drop, but the thing about Graf Reaver in this deck, I have a couple of ways to mitigate it. Like the Rot-Tide Gargantuas can get rid of it if necessary. This is one of those cards where when you have it in your deck, you kind of just have to use it possible. This looks like this is gonna be a rough one. So the good thing here is, I'll be honest with you, my least favorite card to see on a given turn in this format is Skull Scab on turn 2. I don't think there's a more annoying card in the format. Skull Scab on turn 2. I know Dimmer's actually not the greatest of decks. It seems like the mechanic exploit doesn't quite get there unless you have a truly busted version of it, which is fine and sort of expected. But Skull Scab is one of those cards that just sort of multiplies the amount of creatures that Dimmer deck is going to have on board. So it actually kind of a pain. Even if the Skull Scab doesn't trigger because they're sacking zombie tokens, it's just an easier way for all of the exploit creatures from there on out to get value. Even if the Skull Scab isn't making extra tokens, but generally when the Skull Scab comes out, they had a 1-drop out, just like this time. So they did just spend their mana to put the Persistent Specimen out, which I'm very happy about. I think honestly, not sure which option's better here. No matter what, I'm going to do one or the other. I kind of feel like Bloodtithe Harvester is better to do here because it gets stonewalled by that 2/2 zombie anyway. So I think using this now, Skull Scab, getting rid of that forever, feels nice. Obviously more mana efficient, and I can use some of this blood if necessary. Graf Reaver, if you do, get it, I don't envision there being on turn 4 anything I want to bleed dry immediately. I guess I wouldn't mind main phasing using blood to see if I can get a dropout. The catapult fodder is one of those cards where not scary yet, but it can very quickly become scary. Okay. Now, with Catapult Fodder in here with this type of deck, they probably have Diver Scabs because those are 3/5s. They probably have Diregraf Scavengers. It would not surprise me if they have the Skywarp Scabs as well. Um, but I think here, this is one of those rare occurrences where if they have a Diver Scab, they're not really going to get much value out of it because almost every creature that they would scab doesn't really help them that much. Because it's 1-drops. The 1-drops give me value. You know, a Vampire's Vengeance would be very nice right here. This Diregraf Scavenger probably wants to get into combat because otherwise I'm not going to break through. Yet again, this is where the whole Graf Reaver clock. That was a very fantastic draw for me. Wow. Okay. I think the idea here is I do this. So they get their Archghoul value. Evolve. Resolve. Yeah, so Vampire's Vengeance seems pretty powerful in dimmer decks. Obviously, it's a great way to mitigate the Skull Scab tokens that get generated, and it handles Skull Scab too. I feel like I kind of changed their plans a little bit. If they try to Voltron this Catapult Fodder, not gonna be great for them. Okay. I have the opportunity once again to. Okay, so I think what I have to do here is I have to, even though it sounds awful, I really don't want to sit back with Graf Reaver. I don't really want to bleed dry all that much right here, but if they Edgar awakened Archghoul, they must not have too much. I feel like I can put the pressure on. This feels a little aggressive here, but I think it's kind of best for me to do. I'm going to step away for a second again. Okay, well, again, this feels a little thirsty, but I don't really have a choice, and it gives me blood anyway, so I think I have to just Grisly Ritual this. If they have something, then they have something. So that's obviously something they were sitting on regardless, but I'm still netting more damage than they can take. So again, they still can't really do anything here. So I just keep doing the same thing. This is one of those rare situations where Graf Reaver, even though it's kind of a stalled and slow board, it's kind of working right this second. Belligerent Guest will be nice. I mean, they can of course double spell it, double block it if they want. I don't really feel like I'm out of the woods yet against this deck, if I'm really being honest, but it does seem like they're flooding slightly. Mind Leech Goal is not really too much of a priority here for me. Obviously, this Catapult fodder is not entirely optimal based on the cards that I've seen. Okay. So this is a question here of what's better. Four attackers and two blockers, or 5 and 3 and then doing it afterward. I feel like I'm better off here doing it pre-combat. Seems to make more sense here. And of course, they're just going to get rid of their specimen, but this way I get 3 damage in instead of 2 damage in. And they, of course, can trade the Belligerent Guest. But they're getting down to lethal phase. That blood token might be crucial here. Screaming Swarm is not enough. I don't even really have to show them that. I can just swing with all. Okay. So Aim for the Head, obviously, in this deck is much better because it actually kills one of their things. They didn't have very much card draw that I saw. So I feel like in a general sense, this is a pretty decent match. So Aim for the Head is definitely coming in. I think the card that comes out is Reckless Impulse. Card comes in, Aim for the Head. All zombies. Vampire's Vengeance was a nice 3-for-1 for me, so that was pretty good. I think it's really just this. See what happens. This is not a fantastic hand. This is actually an absolutely terrible hand, but I feel like I'm gonna keep it anyway. Best of 3. There's no mana smoothing in the hands. I think I'm just gonna suffer through this, even though it actually feels kind of awful, because I'm not really guaranteed to be able to play anything. Theory, but I'll keep it. Oh, there's my trusty Graf Reaver. See, against this deck, because they actually have a lot of 2/2s, doesn't actually bother me all that much. So really all I need is one land of any type. His hand becomes pretty good already, because 2 Diregraf Scavengers is actually pretty powerful. So as long as I hit a land, it doesn't even, I don't even care if it's a 4th swamp. At this point, it doesn't even matter. It would be nice to be able to play something next turn. The Epicure, that would be very fantastic for me. I actually hope they exploit here. That would actually be fine with me. Well, I got what I asked for. I got my 4th swamp. So I still can't play anything, but I figure either way, I got to swing with this. Now, obviously, the combat math is not in my favor here, but I can't sit back because then they'll just let me keep taking my damage. So okay. Well, they aim for the headed my Graf Reaver, which is honestly a favor to me. Actually, it's kind of not, because now I can't actually scavenge anything. But I'm not going to use a bleed dry on a Mind Leech Ghoul, so I'll just take their aim for the head out of their graveyard. A Headless Rider is something that I would gladly bleed dry, so say goodbye to that. Now this seems like a weird attack because I don't know. They're trying to get the value out of the Headless Rider, so it's almost like a net. I save 2 damage here. I still want a card in the graveyard for scavenging purposes, so I think I have to do this regardless. It could be doing them a favor, but I think I have to do it just to keep my life total, because I didn't actually lose anything there. Well, their Cobbled Lancer took my thing away. All right, so it's pretty obvious here that I have to bleed dry. I think it's a little risky to put Wedding Invitation out with. I think I just have to, because otherwise this Headless Rider is just getting value. So I have to suffer through taking 5 damage next turn, which feels pretty bad. Diregraf Scavenger, well, in theory, assuming it stays this turn, will kill their Mind Leech Ghoul. I'll get 2 life back. That Vampire's Vengeance would be absolutely fantastic for that. Loving these swamps right now. So I think here, I think my best solution here, I'm not really going to get like significant value out of this Rot-Tide Gargantua. So I think I just have to put it out. So now I can block the Cobble Lancer and the Ghoul. It's kind of a bad, I mean, this is kind of like a weird medium spot where I'm definitely, I would rather be on the opponent's side. But I could totally see them thinking I have the better position. It'll be very telling if they don't attack, which not. And now I think things are going to start opening up for me because now I'm going to be able to start generating blood. I don't want to use the scavenger yet, unless I get value out of it. So that might be. Okay. I think what happens here if I attack with this Rot-Tide Gargantua, they block with a Cobbled Lancer and the token. So in response, Diregraf Scavenger still doesn't work. So I think I'm gonna Wedding Invitation first, just to see what I get. Because I can always put the mountain out. It would be absolutely amazing if I got Vampire's Vengeance. But now I have another 4-drop to put out. So Rot-Tide Gargantuing here might not be the worst thing. Yeah, I think that's the way to go here. Get 2 more creatures off their board, and then the Socialite will come down. Sort of force a double block. I'm actually really surprised by that. Obviously, it's less toughness that they're having to give up on board, but now it gives me value for the scavenger. They could have they could have a counter spell here. Now, honestly, I find my Socialite more valuable than my scavenger, if that makes any sense. Only because this one will generate me life. Wedding Invitation. I'm assuming they have a counter spell, and I'm not surprised. See, they're down to 1 card. I have 3. I would take my spot over theirs now with what I have in my hand. Of course, if they drew like Ox Roll, makes things different. All right, so here I believe the best way to go is I will use the. I think I'd rather have Specimen out. I don't think I'm going to attack. Although it might not be that bad of an idea. Socialite just doesn't block Cobbled Lancer very well. This is the block that I was hoping I would get because it just gets more toughness off the board. I know this Archghoul is generating them some value, but it does. I feel like that card is kind of underwhelming in this format. It was one of those cards that seemed much better than it. I think it ended up actually being. There's no stop. They could have Syncopate here, but that means they skip through it very quickly. Yeah. I can put this out. Okay. Now Dominating Vampire is actually pretty potent here. I wish I had a. Okay. I have one Rot-Tide. I would need Commander for that insane combo. This is kind of a weird spot. I don't necessarily want to use the Wedding Invitation yet. One free attack with it or dealing with the Screaming Swarm. So I think I'm going to do that. Dominating Vampire, I would like to save if possible in universe with either the Vampire's Vengeance that I am not going to get. Feels pretty good. Down to 10. I feel like I kind of can't get rid of this mountain anyway. I don't necessarily want to cast this yet. I would prefer if they attack with this and I have more attack. Archghoul, I steal. This is where that Dominating Vampire gets key. You have the want to save it. I do have I will be able to steal the Archghoul because I have 3 vampires. 3 mana cost steal available to me. Can't steal the Screaming Swarm or anything like that. But I can certainly steal the Archghoul. But it would be nice if the Screaming Swarm swing. At 23 cards, so that doesn't really help them all that much. Kind of got rid of it for me, so thank you. This actually leaves them very close to dead. Also kind of leaves me kind of close. It's a little problematic. Obviously now I have to use Dominating Fire. That Mind Leech. I actually have enough mana to play both, which I am in I'm also in slightly lethal range here, which isn't very good. Now I think I'm honestly now because they put a blocker out, I think I'm actually better off taking no. Because if I just take Archghoul, they can block. Ends up netting me less. Actually, net. Then now with another menace creature out, I don't really see how they attack here. I have 2 menace creatures, meaning they're gonna need. I mean, there's obviously plenty of answers that they can get here. I have a blood. I think any removal spell would help me here. 2 menace creatures mean that they... 2 menace creatures accounts for 4 of their blockers. So they actually survive. They would be at 1 life. It would be much better. It would be very convenient for me if I draw a removal spell. I drew a mount. They can account for both. They would be down to 2, and then on the crack back. This doesn't seem like a very good situation. I really don't want to have to use my blood here, but I almost feel like I have to. The bleed dry would save me here. Or a Ragged Recluse, nothing. It does give me a blocker. Maybe down to... This thing becomes unblockable. 5. I'm kind of in trouble here. I actually think I'm in a terrible spot. Flipped Odious Witch actually helps me a little. That was actually something I didn't think about because I blood already. There's our skull scab, so now I'm... Here's Awakening. Rough. If they exploit... I don't know why they would exploit a token. That doesn't... Okay, there's got to be some universe here where I have lethal, but maybe not. Okay, if I bleed dry the Screaming Sword, I have for that, 2 for that, 1, 1. Okay. Okay, I think I have lethal. Okay. 2, 2, 1, 1. I have lethal. Okay, here we... Sweet. All right, well, that was the lucky top deck I needed, I believe. They're tapped out. I don't see how they... I don't see how they win here, but I'm sure something I'm missing. Because I do 1 damage with this. They have to block double with these. Feels like lethal to me. Yeah. 2, 2, 2. Yeah. Okay. After this. Kill that. Fantastic. All right. Got my 2-in-1 with this beautiful deck. Yeah, that was a very close match. Obviously getting that bleed dry was pretty valuable there. I mean, that was crucial. Grisly Ritual would have been just as good. Rending Flame would have been just as good. All I had to do was get rid of 1 blocker. That's where those menace creatures get pretty valuable when you're in the near lethal range. That's why a card like Wedding Invitation and especially red black amazing because it gives you a huge life swing. Extremely powerful. Their dimmer deck, it was decent. Obviously, seeing the Runo later on kind of gives a little more of like a uh-oh factor. They definitely had a couple 6-drops in there, which I don't know if you've it it doesn't happen very often, but when Runo actually does flip, this card's actually so it's kind of cool when it does flip because it's one of those like it feels like a rare occasion, but um this card making captain attacking tokens of other attacking creatures, it's pretty high powered. It's one of the more busted things you can do in this format, but it just takes a lot to get there. But yeah, good win. Good win with a solid, if not spectacular deck. Then just like a final thought on this deck. I don't have the 17 lands open in front of me, which is fine. I would say the main thing I would take back in this draft. Now I don't remember what I took over Graf Reaver or what I took Graf Reaver over. I feel like it was something like a Ragged Recluse, like it was like a 2-drop. It was definitely not a vampire 2-drop because I would never have done that. But it might have been a Ragged Recluse. I don't think it would have been anything else. I don't think it would have been a Courier Bat. I don't think it would have been anything. But I do feel like Graf Reaver is one of those cards that tends to hurt you more often than it doesn't. I will say that in this deck, it did not. This was actually the best performance I've ever had with Graf Reaver, which is actually pretty cool. Lined up really well with a lot of these decks. Because 2/2/2s gives me the opportunity to pick which one I'm gonna get rid of. That happened with a lot of these decks. That first opponent that we went against, the black-white one, it kind of worked out like that. And then this black-white one here, or blue-black one here, it kind of worked out like that too. They never want to lose their Skull Scab to Graf Reaver. So there's that. The one pick that I would 200% take back. I feel like I do this a lot. Still undervalue Blood Fountain format. I think there's some people that I hear across the land that take Blood Fountain extremely highly. I'm not in that camp. Mostly because I feel like Blood Fountain's very slow, but I do feel like in red black specifically, and then also in black white. Although black white, I think Courier Bats you prefer. Generally, if you can pick one or the other. But in red black, you really want Blood Fountains because they're actually incredible with Bloodtithe Harvesters, and having that blood to kickstart Ragged Recluses or your Reckless Storm Seekers, which don't have quite as much support as they do in black white, because black white, Traveling Minister get you a blood token, stuff like that. So I feel like Blood Fountain is something you need to take extremely highly. And I feel like I already had one Rot-Tide Gargantua, but I think I was thinking, oh, I'll get a Blood Fountain later. And that's what I always say, and I never get them late. So I feel like Blood Fountain is a staple to black decks. I don't like picking it in like the first 4 or 5 cards, but I think in that like 6 to 8 range is where I should value it. And I still sort of picture it as a 9 through 12 type card. And I think that's where it gets me sometimes. I don't necessarily think it would have saved me in any of these matches here. That blue red deck that we went against was pretty powerful, and they drew. It's not even the right half of their deck. I feel like they just drew their deck, and they kind of just rightfully beat us in that that matchup. I do think I wasn't mana screwed as bad as I was in that third match, where I was stuck on 3 lands for way too long. I might have had a chance. Because I did have good stabilization cards in hand. They wouldn't have necessarily went off with their Storm Chaser Drake and the double Alluring Shooter, but 2 Alchemist Retrievals probably would have protected that Storm Chaser Drake regardless, and they would have eventually flipped at least one of those suitors, but I wasn't even close to being a match. So that's that. So yeah, let's claim our prize. So prize worthy. I generally take screenshots and I will save my trophy decks, my deck collection, for fun. So here, see that here, I have a lot of trophy decks. You look at that on the top page, is just a bunch of my cool whatever you call them, Crimson Vow trophies. See how many more mythics I get. Being a rare complete's nice because it does net you some extra free gems as far as your quest for being infinite. And yeah, still as of about a month and a half ago, I'm in still. I didn't record it exactly because I went on a new player deck decathlon event nightmare run where I spent 30,000 gold and 4,000 gems. So actually I'm still technically up 2,700 gems, and I didn't use any of my gold that I was gaining by playing on drafting. It was all just for the Phantom event. So I didn't really gain anything. So actually, I'm actually even more ahead than it looks, but I wasted it all on the decathlon. So that's fine. I'm still infinite for now. So thanks everybody. Thanks for watching. Adios. Bye. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. See you next time.